call to order the Architectural Board of Review for April 14th, 2025.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. I'll start with roll call. Vice Chair Whalen.
Here.
Board Member Anderson.
Here.
Board Member Black.
Here.
Board Member Noon.
Here.
Board Member Six.
Here.
Board Member Sovereign.
Here.
Chair Anderson.
Here.
We have quorum.
Okay, we will move on to general business. Item A, public comment. Any member of the public may address the board for up to 2 minutes on any subject within its jurisdiction that is not on today's agenda.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. I will start with in-person public comment. I will call up Mr. Fred Sweeney. Please approach the podium. You will have 2 minutes to speak and make sure your mic is on.
That's a push, a green light. Are you all having fun yet? Somebody said Monday is good. I don't know about that. I'm going to read my comments just so I stay in the 2 minutes. At your last meeting, you struggled with an exceptionally large and out of human scale project facing Milpas and Gutierrez Street. That struggle was in part due to new state laws that are more directly the result of cities' establishment of a 2013 average unit density ordinance. In the run-up and final adoption of that ordinance, based upon the suggested mapping for locating and allowing AUD projects in certain neighborhoods across the city, the result was a designation placement along almost the entire corridor of Milpas Street for such buildings, in my opinion, without any regard to the adjacent 1- and 2-story neighboring residential buildings. That happened, in my opinion, because there was no political will to really look at what such placement might do to the immediate adjacent residential blocks. Most everyone recognizes that the 1980s Haley-Milpas design guidelines are inadequate and out of date. But yet there has been no effort over the years to revisit those set of guidelines. And if such an effort was undertaken, Haley Street might be taken away completely because its direction of architecture has gone completely different than what was originally proposed. The city, as we know it, is a built-out city. Milpas Street, along with the adjacent residential streets that run parallel, make up an important corridor and components of our urban fabric. The result of this insertion of high-density projects should be a call to action to provide some commitment for developing a specific plan, block by block, of the Milpas corridor, just as it's being considered that we're doing for State Street. We must recognize that Milpas Street is the day-to-day working neighborhood that makes this city run. Given the building trades associated with that street, given the affordable, so-called Santa Barbara affordable food and household goods that are shopped there, vendored by the small locally owned storefront retailers that sit on that street. Milpas Street has a unique character made up of what I would refer to as indigenous Pueblo-style architecture and landscaping components introduced over a long period of time, which help scale the street and the residential neighborhoods on each side of Milpas.
We're at 2 minutes.
I got one sentence.
Okay.
This is a character we need to embrace and encourage. Milpas Street is not State Street. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I do not have any further slips. However, if anyone else wishes to make a comment, they may fill one out and bring it to me. I see no one in the audience moving to do so, so we will turn our attention to a virtual comment. And at this time, I do not see any hands raised for general public comment virtually, and we did not receive any written correspondence for general public comment. So at that, I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Anderson.
Okay, we will close general public comment. And we will move on to the approval of the minutes of the Architectural Board of Review for April 1st, 2025.
Chair Anderson,
Yes.
did we get these in our email? I don't think it was published as yet, so we could not pre-review this? Is that correct?
I think they were online.
The- They were online? Okay, sorry.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, let's take a vote.
Chair Anderson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Whalen,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Noon,
Yes.
Board Member Six,
Yes.
Board Member Sovereign,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay, item C, approval of the minutes of the ABR consent meeting of April 7th, sorry, April 7th. Do I have a motion?
I'll move, we approve.
Second?
Any discussion? All right, let's take a vote.
Chair Anderson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Whalen,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Noon,
Yes.
Board Member Six,
Yes.
Board Member Sovereign,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay, item D, ratification of action taken on the consent calendar for April 14th.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. So today, the project 1625 Laguna Street received project design approval and final approval with the following comments. It was a nice upgrade to the project. There were some comments about the concrete for the private patios. The handrail would need to be detailed in traditional and wrought iron. And it suggested that the planter be parked, or the parkway planter maybe have sandstone cobble or mulch or something that works with Public Works Department. And so that was approved today.
Do I have a motion?
Yes.
So you're moving to ratify the action?
Moving to ratify, yes, excuse me.
Okay, I'll second that. All right, let's take a vote.
Chair Anderson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Whalen,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Noon,
Yes.
Board Member Six,
Yes.
Board Member Sovereign,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay, then we will move on to any announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items, and appeals.
So staff has an announcement today for item 4 on the agenda, 418 North Milpas and 915 through 923 East Gutierrez Street, the last item on the agenda. This is for the project design approval hearing. There was a request to have translation available for Spanish-speaking members of the public. And so today I will show you how to sign up in preparation for the hearing. And I can also relay this message via our translator as well. So up on the screen are the instructions. There's a QR code that you can scan. It will download this Wordly app, and then the session ID is located at the top here, AVAL-4009, and that will allow you to listen in to the hearing, and it will give you live translation. So I don't know, we have staff member Natalia Almamia here to also translate what I've just said, so.
Hola, buenas tardes. Si se oyen esta junta, necesitan que yo translate sus preguntas a los board members. Pueden decirme a mí, yo puedo traducir sus preguntas a ellos. And to the board members, if you guys have any questions to any of the public comments, you can refer them to me and I can translate to them as well.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, that's all from staff.
Okay, and any subcommittee reports? No, okay. Okay, we will move on to item 1. It's a continued item for project design approval at 523 West Gutierrez Street. This is a proposal to demolish the existing single-family residence, 1-car garage, and storage room to construct a new 3-story, 9-unit apartment building under the city's average unit size density program and state bonus law with 8 automobile parking spaces and 9 bicycle parking spaces The average unit size is 597 square feet and would provide one very low income and one moderate income restricted unit. Concessions and waivers for common and private open yard setback, solar access, and parking lot landscape standards were requested and subsequently granted by the Community Development Director as part of SDBL. Project design approval is requested. Project requires compliance with the project compatibility findings, urban design guidelines, and was last reviewed on April 15th, 2024. And if you could pull up the minutes, do you have that? Otherwise, we can come back.
I will need to find those really
Okay.
quick.
Well, welcome back. If you could introduce yourselves. Did the board have a chance to look at the minutes from a year ago?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
And then if you could walk us through your response to those, any changes, and your details. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Bobby Walker from BW Design,
Katie Klein, RRM Design Group.
and it has been, time kind of flew by, but it has been almost a year. But as you will see, the plans are substantially the same as what you've seen last time. So with the time that's passed, we've really just been going through the PLN process and then making some minor modifications to address some of the comments you've had. I'll start on the title sheet here. We did have an update to the concessions and waivers. It was for the finish siding on the south side of the plan, so about 1.5 inches to be allowed as a concession into the setback. And that city staff said it wasn't allowed to be within the setback graphically, so there's that. And then the top of the railing, just the top rail is about 1 inch into the setback, so we made that a concession. We added it to concession number 3. On the plans, there were a few comments. One was, well, I'll start actually on the floor plan here. The ground floor is substantially the same as what you've seen. We worked with transportation to do a few minor items. So that includes accessible parking space, the van accessible parking space, as well as some minor modifications to, say, the trash and recycle enclosure to allow for turnout. We also worked through some of the bicycle parking. So we sorted through the long-term bicycle parking here in the front of the building, and then we have a couple more long-term spaces back in the building. So we thought it would be nice to split them up so that different tenants would have different walking distances to them. In the back here, they're lockers, and then in the front, they're racks. There was a comment regarding this deck on the second floor in the front. So we've clarified the dimension of the deck. Those were just incorrect in the last submittal. And then also we've reduced the deck a little bit so that we get more roof around it. So it's not just a false eave on the edge. It's more of a roof line. We've also, you can see, it's tougher to see here in plan. I'll show them in elevation, but the windows on this south elevation have been added into the kitchens. And so originally it was just doors on this side. In our last round, we were really concerned with the privacy of the neighbor. So that's why we have this solid wall on the second floor, and then we open it up with a railing on the third floor. And before it was just doors with highlights in them, and we've added windows over the sinks in each of the units so you can get light on both sides of the unit, reduce glare. I think it was board member Sofrin's suggestion. And we did a little graphic exhibit here that shows the property line and the potential sight lines from those windows. So thinking you have a sink and the cabinet and then the high window. We think that it's a respectful placement of the window to just really be getting light and kind of sky view and not looking down into the neighbor's yard. And I don't know, sorry, I can't remember, I just pointed this out, but we have that wall there. Short retaining wall and then a 6 to 8 foot fence here on the neighboring side. And that really concludes the changes we have on the architectural side, and I'll let Katie jump in for the landscape plan.
Sure. Not much has changed on the landscape. We've just developed them further. So if you want to go back, I'll just quickly walk you through each sheet. This is lighting. We're just proposing a simple path light. You go to the next sheet. Hardscape, permeable pavers throughout most of the site, a gravel patio in the back, and then, informal gravel with benches on it. Go to the next sheet. We're clear with all the fencing. There's a lot of conditions with the grades here. So if there's any questions, I can answer it, but our schedule calls out pretty clearly what's happening at each property line. But basically, plan right is 8 feet and wraps around the back. And then the back of the plan left side is 8 feet. And then the green on the left, that is 6 foot high fencing, and it's horizontal wood fencing. And then the condition below is a plaster wall or a curb. And then in the first 10 feet, we're just doing a low 42-inch plaster wall. You go to the next sheet. Planting, we've done a planting plan. There was one comment about studying changing the plant material that was at the back stairway. Right there, exactly. We had palms, and it was suggested to do a tree there, so we have now Hemisporium there. And we've proposed palms and Hemisporium to create as much screening as possible. Go to the next sheet. I think that's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
You still have some time, so can you walk us through your north and northeast elevation that we had quite a few comments on?
I'm sorry. So I know there were some comments on the deck up here in front and the roof deck above. So for the most part, we've reduced the deck. We've maintained the deck on the third floor in this placement because we're trying to maximize our open space for the project. But in the front, we've reduced it. And as So we just have west, north here, but this would kind of be northeast and then northwest, I think, in the plan. So I think one of the major roof lines that was of consideration is this front lower roof line here from the last meeting, because our deck on the second floor was wider and deeper. So it felt like you had just really false roof line along the edge of it. So we've reduced that because a lot of those houses along Gutierrez have that kind of single story feature at the front, that you interact with along the sidewalk. So we think this with the small windows kind of appropriately addresses that. And then that roof deck behind really steps back.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we will open up public comment for item 1.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. I'll start with in-person public comment. At this time, I do not have any slips for this particular project. However, if anyone wishes to make a comment, they may fill one out and bring it to me. Next, I will move on to virtual comment. I do have a hand raised for Mr. Steve Johnson, so I will unmute, and Mr. Johnson, you will have 2 minutes to speak. Please proceed.
Thank you. I have a brief comment about the parking. It wasn't completely obvious to me on the plans whether there are carports or garages. It looks mostly like carports, but perhaps that could be clarified. And I'll express a general concern about these kind of AUD projects. Long driveway, they turn into often garages underneath the units, and the garages never get used for parking. They're filled with storage and other stuff. And if you look at, I'd say 90% of the AUD projects, you look down the driveway, you'll see cars parked in the driveway without adequate turnaround facilities. And so they back out onto the street, totally contrary to city practice. Parking that is backing out onto the street in a 3-unit project or more is not allowed, except that de facto it is allowed with all these AUD projects. Another point I'll make is really more out of curiosity. I think I understand why the project's been in the works for a year, well before AB 1297 was passed, or excuse me, 1287, I think. The enhanced bonus density offering 100% bonus instead of just 50% bonus. If the owners, applicants ever think about looking at this more carefully, you could dispense with all the parking and have 12 units, not 9. At practically no extra cost, you'll get more revenue. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll have Mr. Pedro Petatan. Please approach the podium. You will have 2 minutes to speak.
Hi, good afternoon. Yes, okay. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Pedro Petatan, and I'm the neighbor from the project they're gonna do. But to me, it's fine. I don't think I'm gonna be able to stop you guys, but as long as I got my privacy, because I got my 4 kids, my wife, and my house like a little single story. See, I want please you guys consider that, and I think that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I have no further slips and no further hands raised virtually, and we did not receive any written correspondence on this particular project, so at that I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Anderson.
Okay, thank you. Can you pull up your site plan and describe your parking, please, one more time?
Yeah, so our parking is more akin to tuck-under parking. They are not garages. And we have 8 total spaces here. And we've gone through the PLM process, so they've been vetted by the Transportation Department for back-out maneuverability.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to questions from the board. Board Member 6, would you like to start?
Yeah, I think the only significant issue that I have is, did you explore a solid railing at the 3rd floor as opposed to the open railing and wide? I think there was discussion on trying to create more privacy by solid walls and higher louvers or whatever was discussed at the last meeting. Could you explain your decisions there?
Yeah, we mostly were trying to balance this concern for privacy with the balance for kind of bulk mass on the 3rd floor. So on the design side, we thought it felt more like the mass felt much larger with the solid rail on top. I think if there was still concern for privacy, as maybe like a condition of these plans, we could look at doing breaks in a solid wall to allow for some railing options on the 2nd floor. But I think overall, not having a continuous solid wall on the 3rd floor is aesthetically pleasing for this elevation.
Vice Chair Whalen?
No questions.
Board Member Black?
Thank you. Could you go over the colors and finishes? Are they listed here? I think they are, and maybe I just missed it again, but. And just describe what's what?
Yeah, the lower 2, so the whole project is proposing hardy siding, and then the lower 2 floors are this shingle style siding, and the top floor is a lap siding. And so we have a white trim paint, dark composite roofing, and then our warmth contrast, I guess, would be the doors, and then wood fences around the project, as Katie's listed.
Okay. Thank you.
Board Member Noon?
No questions.
Board Member Soffren?
No questions.
Board Member Anderson?
Can you go to the street front elevation?
Sorry, it's skipping on me. It's, yeah, this west elevation.
Can you briefly describe the shift from, you've got the shingle plus the lap siding, and what is kind of the thinking there, that, you know, in the elevation of what kind of story you're telling with that?
Yeah, we're kind of doing a take on it. I know it's 3 stories, but a bungalow style, so trying to break up the massing so it has more of a horizontal nature to it, so it doesn't feel as tall.
Mm-hmm. And what's the approach to this building? So that's the front of that's the public facade of the building. So where do you imagine people, you know, from the street walking up to this?
So I think part of this, we probably could have displayed better, potentially graphically with depth. So this top floor is pretty far back. And then we have more of a public space in here with the trash and the bicycles. So we have the high windows in there. And what our thinking is, if in conjunction with the landscape plans, which you can't really see here in the elevation, is that we would have a lot of planting there in the front. So there's some privacy separation there. So on the right side, you would walk into the project, and on the left side, you drive in. So these kind of 2 modes. Our design team at least likes the idea of the pedestrian access and the parking access being distinctly different. So I think what's missing from this front elevation is the element of planting and trees that are going to be in the front that help soften that elevation.
Okay. And where are all the mechanical systems? Are they shown on the roof maybe, or the site plan? Let's see.
So let's see here. There's a mechanical room back in the plan here. And then we're kind of just getting into design development. We're trying, when we have a roof well in the top, we're going to try to consolidate all the rest of the mechanical equipment in the roof.
Okay. So that's to be shown, I guess, like all the condensing units.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
To be shown.
Okay. And then did you draw the context at all? I know you had the photos in the beginning of this set, maybe a building outline of the neighbors. And
We just have this sight line here. We don't have very good.
You have it in the plan, right?
What?
You have it on your site plan?
Yeah, we have it on we had it on our site plan here. We don't have very good context. We're not able to go on the neighbor's property or have survey of that, so we didn't show an elevation, but we have it on in plan here. It's a 1-story building.
okay. Okay.
Okay, I don't have any follow-up questions, so let's go into comments. They are here for project design approval. Board Member 6.
Well, I think it's a fine design, and it's basically what we saw before. I still think that the 3rd floor railing on that northeast,
It's
that
labeled
one.
south.
What's that lower one?
It's labeled south.
South. The south elevation should be solid. I think on paper and an architect's straightaway view without consideration of what's close up and the reality, it looks handsome this way. But I think as a neighbor down in the real world, I think that it should be solid and not expose odd bicycles and the things that people store out in front of their apartments.
Vice Chair Whalen?
I appreciate the proponents' ability to respond to our comments. I'm not wildly enthusiastic about the final design, tuck under parking. It doesn't, it does and does not fit within the neighborhood context in terms of its imagery and size, bulk, and scale. But I do think in the final analysis, I think it's an acceptable design.
Board Member Black?
I agree. I think it's suitable for project design approval.
Board Member Noon?
I also agree. I do think the applicant's adjustment of the, and thoughtfulness of the placement of the window and the high window and then the section through, I would support the open railing. I think he's addressed the privacy issue and effectively, but that's it.
Board Member Soffren?
I'm in agreement with Commissioner Noon.
Board Member Anderson?
It's a little bit difficult to evaluate how it relates to the context because the context isn't really shown in any of the elevations. The actual architecture, I think, is a little underdeveloped for my taste, like the contrast between the siding. I think that's the beginning of an idea and it could be really interesting, but it is kind of just applied right now to the entire story of the third story, and then the first two are all one material. So then looking at the street front elevation, I think it reads a little bit kind of like lacking in both proportional subtlety and architectural interest. I think the way the landscape works with the architecture isn't really shown also, so I can't evaluate that other than just describing that there's a lot of landscape in front of the front elevation. So I think it could use further refinement. Yeah.
Okay. In my opinion, I think it's ready for project design approval. I do agree with the south elevation to make the third floor railing solid to be nice with your neighbor. I think you can break up at the stairwell on the second floor. You can make that railing, you can make that a transparent railing so it kind of reads as two separate elements. And if you want to break up the solid line of the rail, maybe just expose the columns in between your shingles or something like that. And then I would also consider how many lights you have on that first floor, on that pathway. On the building, it looks like you have one at the doors, which makes sense, but then you have multiple in between, so I might remove some of those, maybe the one in the middle. And I would potentially consider a weather protection at the front elevation of that double door that opens onto the balcony. Or, yeah, something like that.
I have an added comment.
Sure.
I think at final, we have to look very closely at the lights mounted on that south elevation, that they don't shine into the neighbor, as if, one of the positive things about the solid balconies that you could have footlights spraying out opposite that and, create a very, well, yes.
Definitely consider step lights. Okay, who would like to make a motion?
Do we need to have a straw vote on the solid third floor balcony?
Sure, we can do that. Okay, all in favor of a solid third floor balcony, raise your hand.
I'm sorry,
Oh.
a quick clarification. We're not, this is a vote to make it a condition? I mean, if the applicant
Yes,
wants
because
to
we're
make
going
it,
for project design approval.
so if the applicant wants to do that, we're just not making it a condition?
No, we are making it a condition.
Okay.
So if you would like it to be solid, raise your hand. Okay, so 4v3, we win. Okay, there you go. Who would like to make the motion?
So I would make a motion for indefinite continuance, for project design approval with indefinite continuance back to the full board, I think so. With the project as presented, with the exception that the third balcony railings at the south elevation should be solid, And also consideration for step lights in back of the balcony walls as opposed to sconces on the walls, all in deference to the neighbor. And I think that's it. Oh, and that the project is consistent with the design guidelines of the guidelines applicable to the location of the project. 2, it's compatible with the architectural character of the city and the neighborhood. 3, it is of appropriate size, mass, bulk, and scale of the, in regards to its location and neighborhood. There is no, there we are. There are no adjacent landmarks and historic resources involved. There is no public views of the ocean and mountains involved, and there is appropriate amount of open space and landscaping.
I'll second that. And would the maker of the motion consider adding that we look forward to, or we would like the applicant to provide further detailing of the material transitions?
Sure.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, let's take a vote.
Chair Anderson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Whalen,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
No.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Noon,
Nope.
Board Member Six,
Yes.
Board Member Sovereign.
Yes.
Motion passes. And if Board Member Anderson and Board Member Noon can express their reasons for no vote?
Well, I don't think it's ready for project design approval, and I think that, like the statements I've already said, it needs a little bit more time to gestate some of the design ideas and the level of detail, and the information also isn't really there to evaluate whether it's compatible, so that's why I voted no.
I supported the PDA part. I think it's ready for PDA, just didn't want to include the condition of the railing.
Okay, thank you. There is a 10-day appeal period. All right, thank you. Okay, we will move on to item 2. This is a continued item for final approval. 617 Bradbury Avenue, proposal to remodel existing 407 square foot residence and remove attached 12 square foot shed, construct a new 2,589 square foot residence with basement and attached 368 square foot single car garage, and construct a new 683 square foot detached accessory dwelling unit with new landscaping. Final approval is requested. Plans must be in substantial conformance with the plans granted project design approval on January 21st, 2025. Welcome back. If you would like to introduce yourselves and walk us through any updates or changes and then some of your final detailing.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
I'm James Carson with Jeff Shelton Architect, filling in for Jeff today.
I'm Maddie Shelton with Jeff Shelton Architect.
So to begin with, reviewing the minutes, it looked like the board was not asking for anything, to see anything in particular this time around. So in the interim, we've just been kind of filling in some of the back of house stuff for the planning department. So let's just start with the plans. Yeah. So just reviewing, we're remodeling the unit in the back of the property there on the north side. New residence in the front of the property, and a small ADU unit on the south there. We'll just run through the plans and I'll show you guys a few new details that we have.
So you're here for final, so if nothing major changed, all the details would be great, and you have
Yeah.
your light fixtures, location of condensing units,
Perfect.
backflow device, that kind of stuff.
Perfect. So let's zoom in here. We have we're showing the exterior HVAC units here. Building 1, there, Maddie's circling it. Building 2, building 2 is on the rear there. And building 3, we couldn't fit on the building, so we're putting it just inside the setback there behind a site wall, which I guess is new since the last time we were here. Moving forward. Yeah, I guess just to the details. So you've seen this before, just standard window detail. I believe that's for all, well, this is for building 1 currently. They're all pretty similar for all 3 buildings. All right, same thing you guys saw last time. So here we have a new detail. This is just the fence for the front of the property. It kind of fences in the front yard for building 1. Pretty straightforward, if you're familiar with Jeff's work, I guess. And then we have the lighting sconces there on the right. The gooseneck will be for building 1, and then the straight arm will be for buildings 2 and 3 in the rear. And then moving on, the only other new details we have, page 29, Maddie? So just simple site wall at the back, be similar to that. I believe that's showing permeable patio, but that'll be concrete as we've been showing on the plans beforehand. And page 31, mechanical equipment. Just some specifications for the heat pumps per our Title 24 calcs. And I believe that's it as far as new items.
Okay, great. Thank you. We will open up public comment for item 2.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. I'll start with in-person public comment. At this time, I do not have any slips for this particular project. If anyone wishes to make a comment, they may fill one out and bring it to me. I see no one in the audience moving to do so. I will move on to virtual comment. And at this time, I do have Mr. Steve Johnson who'd like to comment. Mr. Johnson, you will have 2 minutes to speak. Please proceed.
I'm unmuted now, I hope. Just a minor comment. I noticed the project takes use of AB 2097 for reduced parking. I'm just curious why there's any parking at all. Why not make the garage unit an additional ADU? You're allowed 2 ADUs. Maybe you have to jump through a few hoops. Maybe it's going to be converted later to an ADU. Possibly the applicant could comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And at this time, I have no further slips, and we did not receive any written correspondence for this item. So at that, I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Anderson.
Okay, we will close public comment if the applicant would like to share why there's a garage.
Yeah, our client who plans to live in the front unit would like a parking spot. So he has a garage.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions from the board? No questions?
Go ahead.
The landscape backflow preventer located and screened well?
Yeah, let's see. You know, what sheet is that, Maddie? Page 6 or 7? Zoom in there.
Is there an irrigation?
There is no irrigation.
Yeah, no irrigation plan currently.
You don't have one?
But you're going to need one in the final.
Yeah, exactly.
You're asking for
Oh, do we have one in this set?
I didn't see one.
Right. I'm not sure why they would have let us come for final if we didn't have it. Was that a requirement? Or was it for, right? I guess we don't have it.
Okay, next question.
I'm sorry, I missed that. I also.
They don't have an irrigation plan and they're here for final.
Oh, gotcha, yeah.
No other question.
Okay, any questions on this side? Board Member Anderson?
Yeah, I think we might have talked about this at the last one, but what's the water table on the building right now? It looks like there's wood siding coming all the way down.
The water table's at 11 feet below grade.
I mean the, where your building meets the ground currently in your elevations.
Which building?
Concrete.
There's 3 buildings. Concrete at the ground on all of them.
Okay, can you flip to one of those elevations? I thought I saw vertical wood.
It might be vertical board form.
Oh, it's a board form.
Yeah, we
concrete,
switched
I
that
see.
around at the
Okay.
last meeting. It was
Okay.
horizontal, then vertical 6-inch.
Okay, I see.
This one?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess because it doesn't key to, oh, here we go. Vertical board form, okay. Mesa. So the stairs are made of that as well then? Or,
Yeah, the stairs will be concrete.
okay, that was my only question.
Board Member Black, do you have a question besides?
Not a question, just, yeah, where's the irrigation plan? Also, I noticed too that, this is a minor thing, but all your landscape is labeled as preliminary, when in fact you're asking for final, so that should. be-
Right, yeah, Kim,
Kim should do that.
yeah.
Okay, any comments?
Well, there was a comment from the applicant that the details were straightforward. There was nothing straightforward about his beautiful work. And I
This
don't
one's a
know.
little more straightforward than normal.
I don't know whether we can consider final with the staff to review and approve the irrigation, but it seems that we could hurry this along somehow.
Do you know if it's completed?
It should be within, I mean, it should have been completed, so.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been preparing,
Construction.
once we have final here, we're ready to submit for building.
Sure.
So maybe it didn't get added in, or it's about to be finished by Kim.
So if staff may interject, that's totally fine to not even include as a part of a condition. It's really more of a building and safety thing to see where the irrigation's laid.
Yes
It
and
might be
no.
a thing for Mr. Black to kind of review, that sometimes there could be design changes, but in terms of design approval, I don't know if that's up to you, the board.
Well, if staff wants to review it
Most definitely,
during the
I can.
building review process, they could just, it's just a box you have to check to make sure they have it. So, you just need to check off that there is an irrigation plan.
Yeah.
Got it.
I mean, ordinarily too, we would look to see where the backflow was and whether it's properly
Right.
screened, and that's important to us too.
Maybe we can ask that question today, but I'm more than happy to review that if
Right.
need be,
Yeah.
so.
And if you get Kim to change her labels on her plan.
Yeah, got it.
So is that okay with you to go back, like have it just final, or do you want them to come on consent for you to look
No,
at?
I think final's fine. It's just,
Okay.
as long as there's, the box is checked by staff. It's
Okay.
good.
Who would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. I'd like to make a motion that the project receive final approval on the condition that the applicant provide an irrigation plan for staff to review and approve.
Great. I'll second. Any discussion? All right, let's take a vote.
Chair Anderson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Whalen,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black.
Yes.
Board Member Noon.
Yes.
Board Member Six.
Yes.
Board Member Sovereign.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
There is an appeal process, and it's on the screen.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Have a good day.
I think we have to take a quick recess for 5 minutes. Okay, thank you. reconvene and move to item 3, 1308 Cassique Street. Proposal for a new two-story second residential unit, extension of existing driveway to allow for 2 parking spaces and a new single carport. Final approval is requested. Plans must be in substantial conformance with the plans granted project design approval on April 29th, 2024. Is the applicant here?
Tom, you're up.
Okay, please introduce yourself and walk us through the updates in response to our comments.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Tom Oxner, architect. I know it's been a while since you've seen this project. What I will do is walk you through just the updates, and if any of you have questions, I can return to the plans on that. So I left my list of the minutes from the prior meeting, so if you wouldn't mind reading those off as I go through, or I can go grab mine.
We can go through those
Okay.
at the moment, and then.
Great. So what we'll do is I'll go to the site plan. I think that.
So the board's reading the comments now, and then we will share your screen after. So.
Very good.
Yeah. Okay. I think we are okay.
Shall I go through these? Yes. Okay, so item 1, it says refined trash location and bike parking design to be complete. So the last meeting, we did not have the bike parking and the trash very well resolved. So this right here is a good view of it. So what we've done is we've got the trash on the north side, and prior to that, we had the bike parking there. This works well because we've got an ADU unit back here, and the circulation path is right. So this is right where the 2 circulation paths meet. We thought that would be a good location for it. And we moved the bikes along adjacent to the parked cars underneath the carport. So we've got side loading 2 bicycle parking spots right here. Find additional opportunities for landscaping. So let's see here. I know we've got, Chris Gilliland isn't here tonight, but I'm going to do my best. So what we did, what we've done is we've added some landscaping areas around the existing building. This area back here is privet. We've got, I think Pittosporum is wrapping around here, and why don't I move to the planting plan? Here we go, this is better. So this is the privet. This is jasmine. We didn't extend the privet across here. I know there's a comment for study the privacy from the upper unit to this yard, and we handled that through windows rather than running the privet across the back here, but that could be conditioned, I suppose. This is Pittosporum along here. This is a landscape area from the previous project when it was approved, and you can see we've got some plantings between the buildings here, and then out in front of the existing residence, we've got low plantings here, so we've done our best to introduce as much as we could. Reduce plate height of the vaulted second floor to 8 feet, and we've done that. So what we've done is we've maintained an 8-foot flat ceiling on the second floor, but dropped, I've got 2 plate heights. I'm breaking up the building a little bit to try to get some interest, even though it's a small building. So we've got the lower plate is 8 feet that runs along the north side. I call that the north side. And then we've got a gable feature that steps up that actually gets a little higher. We're using the attic space, though, for the mechanical. And so even though we've got dropped ceilings, but I thought the proportions still work pretty well with the building. And then verify photos or other evidence that the neighbor to the south privacy is guarded. So what we did there is I'll go to the floor plan, but I'm going to show you the floor plan of this southwest elevation with these small windows. We're proposing to, and I just looked at the window schedule, and I don't have the opaque note on there, but the idea when we looked at the second floor plan, which you can see here, we've got small windows on either side of the bed and a small window in the bathroom. And we're proposing to make those so that they're obscure glass, basically. So hopefully that would be enough concession for privacy to handle that. The alternative to that would be, and Chris Gilliland, I talked to him today, and he mentioned dwarf cypress. If we needed to, we could put those along this property line to add some privacy. But I think that's up to the board here. And the rest of the item 5 is really just some compatibility findings that were made at the last meeting. I think that concludes my presentation.
Do you want to walk us through any detailing or light fixture spec?
Let's do that. So here's our palette. We've got, we can start up and work down. We've got a dimensional composition shingle roof. Our body color is this gray here, our trim color. We've got paving. We're handling the paving with some permeable pavers on the driveway. And this is what we're proposing to accent the gable ends of the upper stories. Our ventilation is primarily achieved through vents, through the comp shingles, our exterior light fixtures, and I believe we've got some side yard fencing around the perimeter. And let's look at the exterior elevations, and if there's any materials that need clarifying, I can do that.
Do you have your door and window details?
We do. Let's go down to there. So we've got some exposed eaves with 2x rafters, fascia, rate condition. Let's see here. Our window detail is plastered right to the nail fin. Pretty simple building. The neighborhood's very simple. So it kind of falls into the architectural character there.
Okay. Great, thank you. We will open up public comment for item 3.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. I'll start with in-person public comment. At this time, I do not have any slips for this particular project. However, if anyone wishes to make a comment, they may fill one out and bring it to me. I see no one in the audience moving to do so. We will turn our attention to virtual comment. And at this time, I do not have any hands raised for virtual comment, and we did not receive any written correspondence. So at that, I will turn it back over to you, Chair Anderson.
Okay, we will close public comment for item 3, move on to questions from the board. Does anyone have any questions?
Yes, Chair Anderson, I have a couple. Mr. Ochner, did I get that right?
Yes.
Could you go to sheet A 5.0? This is your image number 8. And just to clarify.
I'm missing 5.0. Which sheet, is that a floor?
A8 on the set that we were given.
A8 point.
No, image number 8, you're on image 22.
Oh, PDF.
Oh, oh, okay. PDF sheet number 8, got it. Here we go. There's 8.
Well, I guess your set isn't like mine. Could you go to the elevations? I'm looking
The exterior
at
elevations.
exterior elevations.
Getting there.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. Here we go.
A small clarification. Well, I don't see it on your set. It looked like on the set I saw, the ADU behind was shown overlapping. It looks like, so ignore that, forget that. Let's see. You talked about on that south elevation, yeah, on the second floor, you could describe those as small windows. Does your schedule show a size for those windows?
Yes, it does.
Because I wouldn't describe them as small, but then that's an adjective.
They look like they're approximately 2 feet wide, but let's get an answer to that. They are 10, 11, and 12. So let's see what it shows on our window and door schedule here. We got,
4 feet.
they're 2 feet wide by 4 feet high.
All right. And my last question, is there a required number of bike parking spaces? If so, what's that number?
The meeting with the city regarding the bike parking, I was not at, but I was, this was the layout that I inherited on my plan, and it shows 2 bike racks that are adjacent to the carport parking, which let's see, right here we go. Let's take a look.
Yeah, I found them there. Well, my question would veer into a comment, so I will stifle myself for now. Thank you.
It shows 2 each. So 4 total would be my answer, yes.
That actually says bike parking 1 and bike parking 2.
Yes, so 2 spaces.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Chair Anderson?
Yes.
You mentioned that you would be, in deference to the neighbor, you would be using obscure glass in those 2x4 windows?
Yes, that's the intent, and I would expect after my comment to have it conditioned on this project.
Why wouldn't you simply raise the sill and have clear glass?
That's a possibility, but the height of a window really translates into more of the light into it.
Okay.
But I would prefer actually to obscure the bottom half of the window and keep the upper half clear, but something in that range, yes.
Whatever, okay. And does the manufacturer of your light fixture have a more obscure glass? It looks by the image, it's quite, it's just simply rippled and not very obscure.
Often they don't, unfortunately. Let's take a look and see at this fixture. I think we've had success with it. It is it's a dark sky compliant, which means that the light source is up high and it shines down, and I'm down through the glass. The glass looks like it is a seated glass, but I don't have an answer for you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Oh, yeah, I just was curious. It's a plaster finish, right? What type of plaster?
Smooth.
It's like a sandbar
Yeah, it's
plaster.
just a smooth trowel.
Okay, that's my only question.
Okay, comments. Vice Chair Whalen?
Well, my only comment is about the bike parking and the rack. I really would like to know if there is a required number, because it looks to me like you could only get 2 bikes in there. You couldn't get another bike up next to the wall, and you will have the driver's side of a car opening into the bike parking. So my comment is, I think the bike parking needs to be worked on. While you've got the trash worked neatly out, the bike parking could use some more of your attention. And it'd be a good idea if it were undercover, although when I really looked at it closely, it didn't appear that the bike parking was undercover. But that's all I have to say. It looks like a perfectly workable plan.
Okay, any other comments? Vice Chair, or Board Member 6?
I think it's ready for final, with the caveat that indeed the glass on the windows on the second floor of the elevation concerning the neighbor would either be all obscure or half and high clear and obscure low.
Okay, any other comments on this end?
Just, you talked about, or you or Chris was talking about the, maybe a use of dwarf of cypress, but could you go to the site plan again for me, please, just to show me where that was? I remember, but.
Yes, so
Right there.
this patio off here, off of the living room, we were hoping to get it a little usable, and that's what created his jasmines down here, and we thought we'd deal with the privacy with the windows above. So
Right.
we've got the privet right along here.
Right.
And we stopped that with, he's got star jasmine, and then it jumps up to the pittosporum along here.
So that's all paved in a patio, yes?
Yes.
So the notion of putting cypress there might be somewhat problematic if it's all paved, yes?
Chris said he could get 1.5 to 2 feet to
That's-
maintain.
that's
Is
not
that
gonna work.
tough to do?
That's okay then, that's fine.
Yeah.
I think it's fine the way it is. Thanks.
Anything else? All right, I'll make a motion for final approval with the condition that the second floor windows on the south elevation be either fully opaque or the bottom half opaque. And that's my motion.
Second?
Any discussion? Okay, let's take a vote.
Chair Anderson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Whalen,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Noon,
Yes.
Board Member Six,
Yes.
Board Member Sovereign,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay.
Thank you.
There is an appeal period. Okay, do we need to take a quick recess or should we? Okay, we will take a quick recess. 5 minutes? 2 minutes.
If I
Thank you.
may to the chair, we may start as early as 4:15. I see 4:14 on my clock.
So 2 minutes.
Whistle at 2.
to item 4.
Hi, good afternoon, Chair. Ellen Kokenda, Design Review Supervisor. I just wanted to let you know that we have Natalia here for translation services. If any member of the public needs Spanish translation, and if the board has any additional comments, we're also providing AI translation services via Zoom and for anyone joining us today in person. So again, if there's any other additional supports, we have that available. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. It's also on the screen. Okay, I'm going to read and open this item. This is a continued item for project design approval. It's 418 North Milpas Street and 915 through 923 East Gutierrez Street. Project involves the voluntary lot merger of 418 North Milpas and 915 through 923 East Gutierrez Street to create 41,477 square foot lot. Demolition of all on-site improvements, 5,850 square feet of non-residential floor area, 8 residential units, and 13 trees, and construction of a new 4-story, 108,698 square foot gross mixed-use building with 90 residential rental units and 850 square feet net of commercial space. The project includes 29 studio units, 46 one-bedroom units, and 15 two-bedroom units, ranging in size from 350 square feet to 974 square feet, with an average unit size of 632 square feet. 9 units would be restricted to very low income households, and 6 units would be restricted to moderate income households. The project includes 65 residential parking stalls, 3 commercial parking stalls, and 1 loading parking stall for smaller size delivery service vehicles. Vehicular access to the site is from East Gutierrez Street. The project is proposed under the city's average unit size density incentive program and state density bonus law. A preliminary housing development SB 330 pre-application was submitted on October 25th, 2023 to lock in development standards and fees in effect at that time. The project also qualifies as a builder's remedy project. The project is subject to no net loss findings per Government Code 65863. Staff has determined that the remaining sites identified in the suitable sites inventory are adequate to meet the city's remaining RHNA for the planning period by income category. Project design approval is requested. Project requires compliance with the project compatibility findings, urban design guidelines, and Haley-Milpas design guidelines. Planning Commission reviewed the project for concept review and comments only on March 20th, 2025. Previous designs were reviewed by ABR as one-time pre-application consultations on July 16th, 2018, under Plan 2018-00738, and on August 22nd, 2022, under Pre-2022-00116. Project was last heard by Architectural Board of Review on April 1st, 2025. Okay, before we move into presentation, do we have our minutes that you can pull up? Just to remind the board. And then do we have any announcements from staff prior to the presentation or after?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I wanted to just address one of the emails that came into you earlier about environmental review. So staff has conducted environmental review for this project and determined that it qualifies for an exemption. The email included some information I wanted to clarify. It said that it was in the flood zone. It is not. It's not in the floodplain, this project location. It's in flood zone X, so not in the floodplain, first of all. Regarding the seismic hazard liquefaction risk, again, during our environmental review, that was determined that is true, as is most areas in the waterfront and downtown area. So the project applicant did submit a preliminary geotechnical report, which they often do, and they will need to provide a final report at building permit issuance or building permit submittal to be reviewed. And then one other issue is the traffic. There has been determined that there are no traffic impacts and no traffic safety impacts.
And Chair Anderson, if I may ask, Ms. Happel, do you mind putting the slide up for the Spanish translation just to make sure that members of the audience were able to get that information? Hang on just a second. The PowerPoint. Okay. So this is how you use live translation. So you can scan the QR code. There is where you can choose the language and you click attend. And then you can read captions on your own personal device or use a headset for audio. Just want to be clear about this. And then the session ID that's available is 4009. So this is the one way that people can plug in to do the live translation as it's happening. Can you say it? Do you mind?
And if anyone does not have a device with them, they are welcome to borrow an iPad from the city if you just approach me or if you need earbuds.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Estamos usando el servicio de traducción de City TV, World AI, durante la reunión de la Junta hoy para ofrecer traducción simultánea en español en formato de audio y subtítulos. Los participantes pueden escuchar o leer en español usando su propio dispositivo como un celular, tableta o computadora portátil con audífonos o auriculares. Para acceder a la traducción al español, por favor use el código de sesión ABAL 4009. Para los asistentes en persona también tenemos disponibles un número limitado de iPads y audífonos. Si necesita pedir uno prestado, puede hablar con la secretaria para registrarlo. Gracias por ayudarnos y hacer esta reunión más accesible para todos.
Okay, thank you. And just so everyone as a reminder, the applicant has 15 minutes to present, and then we will go into public comment. So, welcome back. If you all would like to introduce yourselves, state your name clearly, and then you have 15 minutes to present.
Thank you. I'm Jan Hockhauser with Hockhauser Bladder Architecture and Planning, and I'm here with my co-applicants, Beth Collins and Ginger Anderson.
Okay, I'm going to kick it off. Do we have? Okay, just as a reminder, why we're here, part of the driver is we are in a housing crisis and the city is still lagging in its housing production. This project implements city policy. The city adopted the AUD program quite some time ago, and it relied on it in its housing element to get certified. This project, size, bulk, and scale, is partly driven by the existing AUD program. The project's average unit size is about 630 square foot per unit, and not the over 800 square foot per unit that it could be. If you don't like the size, bulk, and scale, frankly, you need to amend the AUD ordinance because this project complies. Next slide. Yeah. This project, as you heard from staff, is 90 units. It's 18% affordable. One amendment to the project description, we have added one workforce as well. So we have 9 that are very low, 6 that are moderate, and then 1 additional workforce unit. We're going to be housing all sorts of people: teachers, nurses, firefighters, law enforcement, doctors, school principals, engineers. That's part of the reason this project is protected by the Housing Accountability Act, and that means the city can only apply objective design standards. Plus, we're builder's remedy, so we can be inconsistent with the zoning and the general plan. Nonetheless, we are here. We heard what you said. We read the minutes. Jan studied them very carefully, and we are hopeful that you can support our project and that you like what you see and the changes we were making, or that we made. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm the downer.
Okay.
Now
Well, so, because staff didn't read minutes, I'll go. We're presented?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, great. Okay, so there were several comments made. We took the 2-week continuance to today to really make the articulations that we felt appropriate and do our best job to address the commentary delivered by the board at our last meeting. The first comment addressed to introduce a variety of fenestration. And I want to point out that we've articulated the fenestration to include roof eave overhangs, cornices and moldings. They're all deep set openings. Some are arched, some have lintels. So there's a variety of shapes and depths to kind of soften and, as one board member suggested, make the building more poetic. So these articulations are completely consistent with the Haley-Milpas guidelines, and they were included in our presentation if we need to refer back to them. They're also really consistent with the rich tradition of a Mediterranean Hispanic architecture throughout Santa Barbara, so we're very confident that these address those comments. Another comment, the second comment, had to do with making the architectural statement softer, and we believe we did that by incorporating wooden roof lintels over headers, articulating the roof so we don't have a linear ridgeline, but that's articulated. Eaves are extended from the wall to break up that linearity and make the building overall less static. The materials and the groupings of massing also serve that well to do that, and we can show that through our elevations. If you look at all the elevations, except the one on the north property line, which needs to be on the north property line, it's a urban infill zero property line situation, the massing is articulated into distinct groups. And this is not only enhanced by the physical grouping of the mass, but the variation of color and materials to really make it distinguished groups. Now, if we can go to the elevation, if you can advance that back there a little bit further. Ginger, if you go advance that slide. Yeah, there we go. You can see on the Milpas Street elevation here, for instance, that the leftmost portion on this west-facing elevation along Milpas Street is much closer to the street and is ideally a group of mass. And then pushing back behind the parking lots, there are distinct groups, and then a big break in the building plane to allow visual access and light and air into the courtyard and the interior. So we feel confident that this is obviously 3 distinct groups with color variations, roof variations, and massing variations. The next question had to do to articulate the parking entrances, and we variegated the shapes of the entries. The pedestrian entries are arched. We've articulated the vehicular openings, which have to be ADA code compliant for height, with moldings and trim to accentuate those openings. The next comment had to do with incorporating murals on the north facade, and while we can't do that without the cooperation of our neighbor to the north on the adjacent property, and she's very much opposed to this project, we're open to working with her if she wants murals and will allow them to be incorporated. Now, we have materials boards included in the presentation, and I did bring physical samples, and the boards you'll see are digital, but we address the color palette for painting, plaster painting and trim painting, the tile palettes for decorative tile, again, all consistent with the specifics of the Haley-Milpas guidelines and Santa Barbara guidelines in general. And we are proposing a 2-piece mission-style roof. I think these materials are complementary to the whole Milpas corridor. And then you can see the fabric selected for the awnings. You can go back further. There are other material boards. Again, no, you're getting the same image the other way.
I put them all in the same one.
Oh, okay. Well, using part of my allotted time, I can hand out these boards. They're all consolidated, but I can pass them out to the board members.
City TV, if you could zoom in on the table to look at some of the boards provided, please.
Yeah.
Can you just explain what's on the screen for the public?
Yeah, so that is a color palette of the variations in the awning fabrics that are proposed to be used throughout the building. And on the elevations reflect the variation of color and use. There are actually two different style of awning brackets and different depths of awnings depending on where you are on the building. And the next exhibit is the palette of colors. White is the predominant color. There's some lighter shades of beige to articulate the massing, and then balcony guardrails, window trim, and kind of the stain color for wooden headers are the lower three colors on the right. And then, of course, on the left side, you can see the proposed roof material, the paving materials that would occur throughout the project. The next item I'd like to discuss, okay. You go back to the drawings?
Are you done describing?
Yeah, and then this, oh, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead here.
It's okay.
Go back to that, yeah. So you can see I have physical samples here as well for the board, but you can see the tile patterns that are used in different situations on the building, again, to articulate variations in the massing groups. So the lower one on the bottom would be used on the Milpas elevation, and the upper one would be used on the Gutierrez and the Milpas elevation as well. So now we can leave the color material boards.
Well, I think just real quick, sorry to interrupt, is we wanted to also show that the Haley Milpas design guidelines, specifically if you look at one of the examples given, you can see that same type of awning with the striping, and you can also see the recessed windows and doors with molding and trim like the tiles like we have here. So we wanted to show kind of the consistency there and where that's coming from. Also, the roof elements you can see in this are a little bit more flat and plain. We were asked by the board to put more variation in the roof line, so we've done that, but we also wanted to point out the difference in the shapes of the window openings being the squares and the more rounded. So I think that was kind of what we wanted to point out in terms of those consistencies.
Then there was a comment from one of the board members to address the bridge elements that spanned across the courtyard. And here you can see the articulation in the foreground of the individual residential balconies, but beyond the heavy wood timber beam spanning the courtyard, the grille work, and the tile cap to address the detailing of that in consistency with the Haley Milpas guidelines. I'd like to quickly switch to another aspect of our presentation that I think is important. And in this drawing set, yeah, I want to go to the detailed sheets, and I hope the board appreciates this, but A94 through A98 represent the detailing of the project. And I think what's important here is that we're trying to develop a vocabulary and a language that is consistent with the chosen style. And we've addressed this to show the eaves, the non-eave conditions, the tile caps, and our detailing doesn't stop there, but we go to the tower element, which we've articulated and lightened to reduce its size further. You can see the awning brackets, the escutcheon heads for the downspouts and the brackets, the tile work details, and of course some of the balcony articulations and variations in the balcony elements, which was another element that the board requested we variegate and change. So with that, I think we've addressed all the comments the board has made. I addressed the awning differentiations. One more important comment. If we go to our floor plans, one of the board members had requested we look at the corridor in deference to livability, and we did articulate the entrances. Over here, you can see the recessing of the entries. But I would like to point out that the vast majority of the corridor network is open and variegated by corners, light shafts, little plaza elements, gazebo elements. So this side is open, and there's a light well element at this southernmost corner, and the corridor opens up here, but again, in deference to the concern we articulated that corridor. Now that should address all the comments we heard, and those we chose to address, and we hope you appreciate our efforts. So with that, I will end my presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Don't close all that.
Okay. Oh, personal stuff, sorry.
So we also redid the animation. You want to show that?
Yeah, go ahead.
If we could, yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, before we open public comment, I would just like to make a couple announcements with the help from staff. We are going to allow pool public comments, so that can be groups of people. One person can speak for that group of people, and once those names are in for a pool, you cannot have a single public comment, and you'll get 5 minutes for that. And then I'd also just like to mention that we would really appreciate decorum when you do give public comment and no attacking of anyone on either side. So with that, we will open up public comment.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. I'll start with in-person public comment. We are going to start with our two comments that need to be translated in Spanish. So we will have Jose Cavarrubios and Arma Cavarrubios come to the podium so their comments can be translated.
Buenas tardes. Nosotros vivimos allí mero enfrente en el 926 Is Gutiérrez, y para nosotros se nos hace muy difícil tener un edificio tan grande, porque no estamos impuestos a tener un edificio así, y pues pensamos que va a haber mucho disturbio, muchas personas nuevas, tenemos niños que caminan por ahí, y también estaba pensando que pues en caso de que si puede haber un temblor, a nosotros nos va a afectar porque nos va a afectar a nuestra casa, pues si se ladea el edificio es muy grande y si se llega a ladear, pues nos va a caer en nuestra casa. Y yo pienso en mis niños y en mis nietos.
Español. En inglés.
926 East Gutierrez enfrente.
They live next door at 926 East Gutierrez, and they're saying it is unusual for a building of that massing to be placed in the area. However, they're not opposed to it. They do share their concerns for if there is like an earthquake or some natural disaster of the building and how that's going to be affecting the property in the area, especially because there's a lot of children and elderly people in the area that they're concerned about the problems that might arise because of that.
Ya, es suficiente.
¿Es todo?
Sí, gracias.
That was their final comments.
Nos gustaría que no lo pusieran.
They're saying they would prefer for it not to, for the project to not happen in that type of massing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next, if anyone wishes to group their comments, please let me know. Okay, so we do have several public comment. I will be calling you up in groups of 3. Please remember you will have 2 minutes to speak and turn the mic on. So up first, we will have Jose Gallegos, Christy Barajas, and Natasha. If you could please approach the podium.
Is this on? Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. Okay, this thing, the bulk size, however you want to, describe it, it's a monstrosity. It does not belong in that neighborhood. Not like that. Now, it was a few years back, some board members that were not here said, well, it's not about parking, it's not about traffic. Yes, it's about safety and environment. And it is about safety and environment for for that neighborhood. It's going to just impact it really bad. Because like I mentioned a little over a week ago or so, I grew up in that neighborhood. And when I mention environment, when those rainstorms hit, it gets flooded over there. So there's going to be an underground parking. That's just going to cause, massive flooding in that area. Yes, this it's just not right. It's not right. And I mentioned maybe 2, 3 stories, something like that. But then I talked to somebody, a couple that live on the 900 block of East Haley Street. And they showed me their house. They showed me the back of their house. And this thing is just going to block their view. That night when I was there, beautiful, clear sky, the moon. It was beautiful, a beautiful view. This thing is just going to block that view. And there's a nearby business owner on Milpa Street. It's going to block their view. It's going to block the sun. There's going to be nothing, no view of the sky, whether it be early morning hours, afternoon hours, evening hours. These folks that are going to live around that area, there's going to be no view whatsoever, because this thing's just going to be so massive. So please, do not approve this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Christy. Please approach the podium.
Good afternoon. It appears that this project should not have qualified for CEQA exemption under the infill development category. Specifically, it does not meet the criteria outlined in California Code Title 14, Section 15332D, which states that the project must not result in significant effects related to traffic, noise, and similar impacts. I know we just had a report about the traffic where they say it won't impact it, but it's also my understanding that Milpa Street is undergoing changes that may possibly minimize the flow from 2 lanes to 1, or possible bike lanes on Milpas, which also I don't understand. Regardless, the development clearly presents traffic-related concerns that warrant further review.
Let me see.
I'm sorry? Oh. And then, to the developers, I just want to say, while a mixed-use commercial and residential development such as this might be appropriate in a different location, it's not suitable for the site at 418 North Milpas, 915, 923 East Gutierrez. In the future, we urge you and any other developers to seriously consider the potential for disruption, disorder, and negative impacts your projects may have on the surrounding neighborhoods and communities. Responsible development should take into account the people and the places it affects.
Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Natasha.
Would you be kind enough to start my timing when I start to speak on the topic? I'm giving you some handouts. So I see you got my letter. I'm glad it was read. I'm not sure if everyone read it. And so I'd like to make a few comments about this Milpas Gardens, which should actually be called the either Milpas Behemoth or the Milpas Mass. I'm hearing a little bit of cherry picking of rules and regulations from staff. So I'd like to clarify a few things. I'm going to go through my 8 points. What you are seeing in the handout is the flood zone. There's a really great map, and it's like right over there. It's not far. You just walk in the front door of 630 Garden, and the map is on the wall. It shows the flooding. Go have a look. It's gray. This area is in the flood zone. The other document you have, which says, within a special flood hazard area subject to inundation by the 1% annual chance flood, 100-year flood, as determined by FEMA, in any official maps published by FEMA. This is in that flood zone. And let's think about this. You put a massive building in a delicate area, heavy. It's going to tilt somewhere. 12 inches, maybe a couple inches here, there. What's going to happen to the neighbors on each side, particularly given earthquake risk, particularly given liquefaction? Is it going to topple on one of my neighbors? Is it going to split apart? Is it going to fall into the street? Is it going to destroy our homes? So I think these are things that we have to think about before we start talking about some of these design elements. I know you guys are kind of finicking all around the fenestrations and stuff, but all that finicking around fenestrations isn't going to make this a fine project. So next is...
You're at 2 minutes. Is she requesting more?
I think she just requested to get pooled by 2 others
Okay,
that
thank you.
requested to speak, so we'll refresh the timer once or twice more.
Thank you. So design compatibility, we've talked about that. The last time we met, traffic was a thing, safety, health. This time, it's compatibility. We talked to the traffic department, and they're kind of making up funny numbers around models and things. I can talk about that extensively. I won't right now. City charter. Come on, guys, you've capitulated. You've capitulated. We need to protect our city. And this is not established law. We can do better. We are 100 years out of people fighting for the beauty of this city. And what we need you to do is to continue fighting for the brand that is Santa Barbara. We move here because we love it, not because they're wonderful job opportunities, though it might be for some of you. We moved here because it has an appeal, it has a promise, it has a brand of a quality of life. And projects like this are destroying that quality of life and that brand. People come here because of who and what we are and what we look like. And I have heard professionals, this is not me, I would use other words, not quite as expressive, who say that this is hideous, it's a monstrosity, it is out of scale, it is ugly. I'm sorry to the architects who worked so hard on it, because when you put your heart and soul into a design, you want it to be beautiful, you want people to like it. It's an expression of self. But this design is something that a developer said maximize profit from. So I ask you to deny design approval at this time, require a full environmental impact review, install story poles, please, the neighbors need to see it, and reevaluate the project's flood and liquefaction risk and the compatibility with the neighborhood, and insist on conformance with FEMA. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we will have Britta Bartels, Danny Marino, and Christine Newhauser. Please approach the podium. You will each have 2 minutes to speak.
Dear ABR members, I thank you all for your hard work and questioning this inappropriate project. Sorry. Okay. Dear ABR members, I thank you all for your hard work and questioning this inappropriate project. Today is my third time opposing, and I am not giving up speaking up like many other East Side neighbors emailing you 317 pages to fight it again. Being part of a charter city that does not fully have to comply with what our state government is trying to force you to do, you have the right to say no to incompatible building projects like this. When I Googled what the ABR goals are, I found the following major concerns and objectives as being an important part of our city's review process. To protect the historic and architectural qualities of Santa Barbara. To protect the beauty and ecological balance of Santa Barbara's natural resources, to ensure development and building are consistent with the policies of the general plan and zoning ordinance, to promote high standards in architectural and landscape design and the construction of aesthetically pleasing structures, to ensure appropriate building massing, including size, mass, bulk, height, and scale, and in relationship to its site location and the surrounding neighborhood like us. We have a saying too, to improve the general quality of the environment and promote conservation of natural and man-made resources of the city, to encourage planning which is orderly, functionally efficient, healthful, convenient to the public, and aesthetically pleasing, to encourage high standards of livability of projects and safety of residents, to promote neighborhood compatibility, to encourage the preservation of pre-1925 and Hispanic styles in architecture, to promote visual relief throughout the community by preservation of public scenic mountain views, creation of open space, and variation of styles of architecture, to ensure that the review process is fair and consistent both in policy and implementation, to allow all who are involved to benefit from the process. With all this said, I hope that you remember what you read when you were hired for this job, and I encourage you to deny this whole thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Marino?
I didn't bring a letter or anything. I'm just here to put on the record that I'd like to invite every board member here, commission, to visit my property, to visit my home and see what you will see from my backyard and the building that will be put up there. If you lived there, you wouldn't want it to be there. I will be living in the shadow. There's 3 properties that are adjacent to them that will be adjacent. I think it's 925, my property, and Natalia's property. Those are the 3 main buildings touching that property, and they will be in the shadows. But that's all here. I want you to deny this project, and I will personally invite you to my site or my property. You go to properties and check these sites out, but you don't go to the neighboring properties and check it out. I'm welcoming you to come to my house and look what my property will face for me and my tenants. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Newhouser?
Hi. I'm here in opposition of the four-story, 90-unit behemoth at Milpas and Gutierrez. It's a location that is already plagued with a lot of traffic congestion and limited parking. The project has many problems. We may not agree on that, but it is in a FEMA flood zone. That's why there's no subterranean parking, I believe the architect said. There's the liquefaction, it's in the liquefaction area, and also the traffic study from 2011. I just don't agree with what the city is saying about that. I mean, I live over there. I'm urging the ABR to exercise its authority and stand with the community, specifically that you deny the approval of this design in its current form, require a full environmental impact report under CEQA for this project, and reevaluate the building's compliance with FEMA and the liquefaction safety standards. Insist on an updated post-2011 traffic analysis. Acknowledge the city's charter rights and protect Santa Barbara's architectural integrity, health, and livability. I'm hoping that the Common family, the Common Bartlemas family, that are very nice, well-respected family, can follow in the same vein that the John Dixon did with the Tri-Counties. And they listened to the neighbors, and they wanted to have a 100-unit project, and instead they reduced it to 50 units. So I think, as Commissioner Six said, it should be half the height and half the size, half the footprint. And 45 units where there have been 8, I'm sure that they'll get a return on their investment in ample enough time. I think something else that's kind of been unbecoming, speaking of that, is just the demeanor from the architects, and it's probably not just these architects, all about what they could do and how they didn't take advantage, and how they aren't adding 20 more apartments, but they could. And we could do away with parking altogether. We aren't taking advantage of all the other things like the builder's remedy that we could if we wanted to, and it just seems kind of threatening. And I think that the way that the attorneys or the architects and the attorneys seem to have more of a relationship with the city staff, it's kind of eroding, it's definitely eroding the public trust.
You're at
On that
2
note,
minutes.
I sent this in on April 1st at 5 on Monday, and it didn't get into the notes, my letter. So, speaking in public trust. Thank you. I have some for you all, too.
No, you can just give them all to me. Thank you. All right, next is Ms. Giovanni, Mr. Gutierrez, and Mr. McCauley. Please approach the podium, and please remember you have 2 minutes to speak.
Good afternoon, Chair and board members. This project is still a monstrosity and incompatible for the East Side neighborhood. The 4-story commercial building on Milpas Street still lacks a human touch for those walking on the sidewalk or those driving on Milpas. As stated in the Milpas-Hadley guidelines, it must be set back to a minimum of 20 feet. This architect, Mr. Jan Hochhauser, pardon me for the mispronunciation, stated on the April 2nd ABR meeting that he is following the current city guidelines, and I would like to know what they are and if all members of this board have read them. And I would also appreciate having this question answered for the record, please. Furthermore, other Eastside projects that come before this board must fully follow the Milpas-Hadley guidelines. So why is this applicant not being held to the same standard? We here in the Eastside District expect our character, history, and architecture to be preserved and are looking to this board for leadership and guidance in regard to that. We have already been disrespected by Mr. Robert Ludwig, developer steward of this property, during COVID, when he allowed the front of his property to be used as a human toilet for months. If it wasn't for the Santa Barbara Health Department stepping in to admonish him for such negligence, God only knows what his property would look like today. As someone who prides himself on being a Santa Barbara native for 50 years and being in commercial real estate since 1978, it is shocking that he manages his property with such negligence and a lack of pride.
You're at 2 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I make a request not to run out of time until I start talking? Because I'm going to show the board what I have it in my phone. I'm just gonna explain what it is. But this is basically the shadow study of this big property on my property and the adjacent property. If they can present some visual aids, why can't I? So this is the proposed project. This is my property.
For everybody in the audience, can we just put it right here in the middle, so that's City TV?
Where is it?
City TV, please focus in on the phone on the desk, please.
And then we'll start the timer and you can speak to it.
Okay. Can you turn the other way around? There we go. That is Gutierrez Street. That thing right there is the property. My house is right there. That's during winter solstice at 3 p.m. You guys talked about you can't do anything about the height unless there's public safety being jeopardized. Number one, when there are days wherein there's no sunshine, I would develop molds in our bathroom. Imagine this: at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, we will be shadowed by 4 stories of a behemoth property, just like that. And if you scroll one more, the other side, going that way, that will be the other property being shadowed, I believe, at 9 a.m. in the morning. See how they're covering all the properties in between or on the sides. And we're talking about flooding. I mentioned about my property being lower than my neighbors. And I don't think they will build something lower than mine. So my property will be in between flooding when there's torrential rain, because I've seen it. I live there. When there's a rain, my neighbor on my next side, all the water in their property will go directly toward us. Now, if that property is going to be built, I don't think they're going to build lower than mine, and all the water will be staying in my property. And then I forgot about the earthquake. As a matter of fact, earlier this morning, there was an earthquake down south. We are in California, and this is frequented by earthquake. Imagine a 4-story high close to our house, and if there's a big earthquake, are we going to be the stats in the news that say a family died from a great building collapsing over our property? Think about it. That's what we call safety issues right there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. McCauley, please approach the podium.
All right, boy, you guys are in a bind. People want everything to stay the same, but I know you're in a squeeze to get more housing. And I think the architects have done a great design with the details and everything, the colors and breaking it up, because it is a massive structure. But I'm concerned about light levels. We live behind it, and as a fellow was just saying, there's a shadow. We have 6 people, and we have a garden. And, I go out there every day and gather food, and I can go to the store in the future, but below, it's like living in a big city. You've got this looming thing that cuts your light out, and it seems like as citizens, we're entitled to clean air and sunshine. And we're not in a prison. And I've seen some of the plans of this. I'm concerned about people inside where they're using solar tube-like shafts to bring light in, which kind of looks like a prison. So overall, I think what could be done is you can increase the housing, maybe since our population is decreasing, immigration's increasing, and retail occupancy is getting lower, maybe think about getting rid of the retail and making that a residential area and maybe dropping it from 4 stories to 3 so that we could have a little sun. And we do need housing, so maybe something like that would work. And I think it's 64 feet, and I know there used to be codes of 45, so that's my concern is the sun, both people inside and where we're living right behind it. So maybe think about that, and I hope you get out of this predicament. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next, we will have Andy Zoran, Ms. Bakia, and Ms. Hefferman. Please approach the podium. You will have 2 minutes to speak.
I'm Andy Zwerin. I live on North Aliso Street. Been in a bunch of meetings, been in traffic meetings recently where the models that they use have no relationship to reality. I've asked the traffic department to please update the reality, and that they say, of course, they are unable to actually do anything other than what's in the model that they're using. And as somebody already spoke, the model's 14, 15 years old and has no relationship. I've asked the legal department, but unfortunately got no response as to whether it's legal for the traffic people to say, okay, here's the model we have to use, but this is also our opinion. So they can issue what they have to say because of legalities, but there's nothing preventing anybody, whether it's this board or the traffic people, from also saying, hey guys, this may be what we have to write down, but this is also how we feel. And I just want to remind you, somebody already spoke about what the board does. I don't have to clarify what the board does. You guys know exactly and do it way better than I could ever do it. But you know, one of the things that the board is supposed to do is land use development. So far, so good. The ABR's review process is integral to the city's land use and development planning. This is the important part now. Ensuring new projects are appropriate for their location and surroundings. That is your mandate. And your mandate, I don't know, do you guys want to follow your mandate, or you just want to blow it off and hide behind the what the legal department says? I don't think you wanted to be on this board to blow it off. I think you probably do this because you have a sincere caring for the city. So please respect your mandate and deny this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Bakia, please approach the podium.
She's coming. Medea, correct?
Yes.
Okay, good day, everybody, board, chair. First time I'm doing this. I'm a UCSB retiree. Lived all my life here in the on the east side. Third generation, it's actually fifth generation now. For all the people that could be here, a lot of them are working at 3 jobs just to afford the living cost here in Santa Barbara, which I'm pretty sure a lot of you know already. Families, my family have built Santa Barbara. From contractors, we've had lawyers, social workers, nurses that have helped to keep up this city. Now we have a new generation, those that are up and coming, like your age, that need to carry on this city. Where is the affordable housing for this generation that will keep up the history of Santa Barbara? The only time we celebrate Santa Barbara is during fiesta, and everybody becomes a Latino. How convenient. But one thing that I'm going to just say very much, because I know my time is almost up, is a disrespect to the east side. It seems like it's been a dumping ground for all these massive things that are coming in. I saw it when we were able to walk to the store, to walk to the beach, but my concern is a safety issue now for the seniors that cross that street. I live up Gutierrez, and I could see the massive traffic and parking that has impacted this city. It's going to double that. We have contractors that are there, the trucks, everything now is there. There's no parking up till all the way up to Malafont and maybe up further. Cars come streaming down still fast, even though those little circles are there to slow down the parking. Just as I was coming right now, delivery trucks on Milpa Street, impacted from 4 to 6. So the homeless, the children, the seniors is what I'm concerned about when they cross that street right on that corner. So thank you. I hope you take this all into consideration.
Thank you.
And Mr. Six, thank you for being bold. I was here last time. He was the only one bold enough to say the truth.
No clapping.
Miss Heffernan, please.
Thank you, board members. This is the third time I've spoken out or written of my objections to this project. Last time we met, I spoke about safety and parking and shade. This time, it's different. At the last ABR meeting, board member Anderson, who's left, posed the question he was not allowed to ask: why did the developers choose this location? It was still a good question. What is not considered when these massive projects for the Milpas corridor come before you for approval is the unique character of this part of the city. Here we have direct adjacency of businesses to residences, proximity to local schools and churches, and the flow of traffic to and from the freeway. All of these characteristics tie into safety issues. Using a general traffic model and a blanket grid overlay for the city is not a model that recognizes these unique characteristics of the Milpas corridor. That model doesn't analyze specific intersections, local turn movements, or the real-time congestion. I stand with others here who question whether this particular project complies with CEQA requirements or objective development standards as outlined in the Haley-Milpas Design Manual. A project of this size could generate hundreds of new car trips a day with dozens during peak commute hours. That's a major addition to one of the most congested corridors of the city, and because of the lack of sufficient parking for this project, you can be sure that many red zones put there specifically for safety reasons will be occupied. CEQA requires traffic to be evaluated using current conditions, not just 2030 projections, and do those projections even factor in what will come when 711 North Milpas is built? As a community member, I urge you not to advance this project until full attention has been diligently paid to these concerns voiced here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we will have Sebastian Aldana, Luke Garcia, and Gabriela Covarrubios. Please approach the podium. You will have 2 minutes to speak.
Good afternoon, ABR Chair and members. My name is Sebastian Aldana Jr., Santa Barbara native and property owner for the past 22 years, 3 blocks away from this 418 North Milpas project. Today is the 4th ABR meeting. I may be repeating myself from the last ABR meeting, but from the previous meetings, not one member liked the size, bulk, or scale of this project. In the last few meetings, over 100 residents voiced their opinion, and it was all negative, one way or another. Maybe 2 or 3 were for it. And the project still comes back at four stories. The owner and architect are disrespecting the neighbors and ABR for that matter. They do not care. They feel they have the community over a barrel, and they do not give a hoot about the surrounding neighbors or negative impacts it's going to be bringing if built. On the second ABR meeting, August of 2022, architect Hoshhauser, excuse me if I said it wrong, Hoshhauser, stated, "The table is served whether people like it or not." In my view, that is a very disrespectful and arrogant statement. He's basically saying, we're going to ream the neighborhood whether you like it or not. Story poles need to be implemented. They should be mandatory. This project, along with 4 other projects from Calle Puerto Vallarta to De La Guerra, will bring in approximately an additional 500 vehicles, not including their guests. A proper traffic and parking study needs to be implemented, along with an environmental impact study.
Thank you. Your 2 minutes are up.
If I could just say one more thing.
Okay.
We would like to receive the same service as the people by the mission. No more, no less. There's a massive project over there. It's my understanding that they're going through all these studies. We would like the same over here. Thank you.
I think that's.
Mr. Garcia, please.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Lucio. Yo vivo en La Haley y voluntario. Y se me hace muy difícil estacionar mi carro. Por ejemplo, ahorita me traje el carro de mi hijo porque no hay en ningún lado estacionamiento. Y si en el futuro los apartamentos se hacen, no voy a encontrar estacionamiento. Mi carro, por ejemplo, si me traigo mi carro ahorita, yo me estaciono a una cuadra arriba de la Haley y Soledad. O si no, a la vuelta, y todavía no están los apartamentos listos, no puedo. Por ejemplo, yo trabajo en la tarde, tengo que ir a estacionar mi carro a media milla. O sea, no hay estacionamiento.
Yeah, he lives on Haley and Voluntario, and he currently had to switch cars with his son to be able to find parking, and even then, he usually has to block at least one block north of his property, and that's now without having all of the potential development in the area. He does work in the afternoon, and he sometimes has to park about a half a mile away in the area just to be able to find parking. So he has major concerns on parking and all of the traffic congestion that's going to be happening based on this project and other projects in the area.
Okay. Es todo lo que quería decir. Gracias.
That was all of his comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Gabriela Cavarrubios. I'm not sure where she may have gone to. Okay. At this time, that concludes all of the in-person public comment. I will now turn my attention to virtual attendance. And at this time, I do not see any hands raised for virtual comment on this particular item. And Chair Anderson, we did receive several written correspondence, one from the Allied Neighbors Association, Mr. Fred Sweeney, Maria Dema Cabral, and Hefferman, Gabby Cavarrubias, Britta Bartel, Natasha Todorek, Danny Moreno, Yolanda Perez, Christine Newhauser, Linda Williams, Sabine Palero, and Mitchell Tsai. So at that closes public comment. Oh, actually, I do have a hand raised on virtual public comment. Mr. Steve Johnson, I will unmute you. You will have 2 minutes to speak. Please proceed.
Thank you. And I'm sorry for the earlier glitch. I believe I was left unmuted and was speaking while someone else was speaking. I don't think that was my fault, but I apologize nonetheless. Quickly, the staff mentioned something about a finding regarding the suitable sites inventory, that this project was okay, that finding had been made. That's a very important topic, and I would like the public to have access to a written description of the finding, so that I think personally the finding could be challenged, but not if we don't know anything about what the finding was. I'll just note that the suitable sites inventory for this project allocates 13 low-income units. The project only provides 9. So in fact, there is a requirement to say where we're going to get the other 4. And if you look at the sites inventory as it is, there's no prayer of getting another 4 anywhere. Well, I would like to see the reasoning that everything is fine with the sites inventory. Reduced parking, that probably the last meeting and certainly at the PC review, there was a justification for the reduced parking requirement having to do with a state policy, Government Code 61915, section P, which notes that if you have 11% very low income, staff says that's enough to get a lower parking requirement. But that's not, I don't believe that's true. I think that section of code, section P, it does mention 11% very low income, but there's an additional requirement. The project has to be located within 1/2 mile of a major transit stop. And I think the staff report should be corrected. The project can easily qualify for reduced parking just as a waiver. It's a state density bonus project. Any density bonus project can get reduced parking as a waiver.
Thank you, that's 2 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And at that concludes our public comment, so I will turn it back over to you, Chair Anderson.
Okay, we will close public comment for item 4. And we will move to questions from board members. Vice Chair Whalen, would you like to start?
Yes, I do have a couple of questions. First to staff member Ms. Kennedy. Could you address the claims that Yvonne made in her handout about the flood zone and the earthquake zone? Do those seem to conflict with your report?
Correct. Yeah, like I said before, it is not in the floodplain, and we can.
Do you have a copy of this? Perhaps
I have.
It's just some interpretation of this map that's.
So it's not in the floodplain,
All
for
right.
sure. And it is in the liquefaction zone, yes.
It is.
And unlike other properties, we have a process that we have projects go through. A preliminary geotechnical report was submitted early on for this project, and there are recommendations in that, and they'll have to prepare a final geotechnical report when they submit for a building permit and follow those recommendations from the geotechnical engineering.
And I'm assuming that following those recommendations of the geotechnical report will be structural requirements.
Correct. And follow earthquake type of construction,
Sure.
et cetera.
And then, if I may, Mr. Gutierrez, what is the origin of that shadow study that you shared with us? Where did that come from?
I believe that was records before online that was taken out.
That was part of the presentation. Thank you. I didn't hear where that came from. Those are my 2 questions. Thank you.
Board Member 6?
Yes, to the applicant, one of my suggestions on April 1st was to look at a radically different architecture or material at the front 3-story portion against Milpas. Did you explore that? And do you have any kind of documents that show that exploration and why it wasn't chosen?
Yeah, there's a couple of reasons. One is that in the effort to develop the building and manage the building, there's a certain amount of the marketing that has to do with branding the project. It's a marketing exercise to provide the housing. So we thought to differentiate that with color and a different tile pattern would be adequate. And that was the goal of both me and my client.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
Board Member Black?
I guess the question that comes up for me is, and I'm going to direct this to staff, I want the public to be clear about what ABR's purview is and is not, and I was wondering whether perhaps staff could reiterate that, because I think there's a lot of folks here that maybe not understanding what we can and cannot do here as we listen to this testimony.
Yes, so your board does look at design and guidelines, design review guidelines, and not environmental review. I did just want to provide that information to kind of get those issues off the table, that staff has conducted environmental review. That's what planning staff does. So that is not your purview. That is not something that you need to consider when you review this project.
Yes, through the chair. This is a aesthetic board, and your focus is on the aesthetics of the project. It's not a land use decision board, like Ms. Kennedy said, so you're just evaluating the project for aesthetics.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Board Member Noon?
No questions.
Board Member Sofferin?
It's a question for staff is, how many times has this project come through for presentation? Do we know how many times?
There were 2 one-time applications a number of years ago on a different project, similar, but not exactly this one. And then they were here April 1st for this project. So the second time for this design.
So we could say.
Today's the third.
Yeah, Board Member Sofferin, this project, once it's been deemed complete, can only have 5 hearings. That includes appeals. So we are at number 2 for this one. And we're also running up, oh, it's 3?
Planning Commission 3.
Oh, 3, yeah. So we're at number 3, and we're up against the Permit Streamlining Act, so we need a decision today.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question also for staff. Can you address the public comment regarding the no net loss findings for the infill? No.
Well, I could say that that's not within your purview.
Okay.
So
Does the public get to know about it, or is that through, they can come to the planning department, or?
It's an internal review, and yes, we do it to make sure that we're complying. But if staff has questions, or excuse me, if the public has questions, they can inquire with staff.
Okay. And then I do have a couple questions on the plans. I noticed on the material board you have a metal roof called out. Can you just point on your roof plan where you were planning to use metal roof versus tile?
Yeah, the weathered copper element is just strictly on the tower element.
Got it. Sorry about that. And then are all the balcony floors solid, or are some of them transparent?
Some are graded bar and some are solid.
And then what is your design attack for the stormwater control for this site?
Civil's been involved in the project, but, working with the city engineering department, Public Works, I'm very confident they've addressed stormwater to not intrude onto the neighbor's property.
Sure. Are you doing tanks underground? Is that the?
There'll probably be some of those
Okay.
tanks underground in the parking area below the building.
Okay. Okay, any other questions?
Yes, Chair Anderson, I had a few follow-up questions for Mr. Hockhauser. Previously, you told us the garage was ventilated. Where are the exhaust vents for the garage? Do they show on the elevations?
No, they do not. They do not at this time. We haven't done a mechanical ventilation system yet at this level for the design, but given the enclosure, as I stated last time, we couldn't achieve a natural ventilation situation, so we will be using mechanical ventilation, and per code, those outlets cannot go on a public sidewalk or onto an adjacent property.
Oh, thank you. I would be very interested in knowing where those vents are, because it occurs to me they're not going to be small.
Yeah, or there'll be several smaller ones distributed.
All right. Well, I'll look forward to that.
And I hope to be back before you for final approval at some point in the not-too-distant future.
And then you mentioned that you did make some changes to the tower. Could you dimensionally be more specific on what you did to the tower?
Yeah, if we can go to quickly. I gotta hit the OK button here. You could see up here on the screen that we reduced the massing and tiered the mass, inspired by some of the towers you referenced at the back of the room here and other examples which we've studied throughout Santa Barbara, and then incorporated this step up and cornice around the opening to kind of lighten the mass. So it's reduced about 12% in width from the original presentation.
So the width is reduced 12%, but the height is still the same.
The overall height is still the same, yeah.
Oh, very good. And then finally, you may remember one of my comments from the last time was about the courtyard and how the balconies were stacked. Are they, any changes there?
Yeah, and that's something that we had to maintain. In other words, in the efficiency of developing this kind of housing, while dressing up the exterior to be a friendly and poetic building, as you suggested, is an expensive exercise. The vertical stacking of units is a very important feature to deliver structural simplicity and efficiency. And while we did include awnings and varying the balconies on the interior, we still maintain the stacks.
On the interior?
On the
All right.
interior.
Those are my questions. Thank you, Chair.
I had a follow-up question. I think one of our questions last time was about a site section showing the proximity to neighbors. Were you able to
I think
include
we have
that?
those exhibits. There's a few of them that I think are important to reference here. And I do appreciate the opportunity to bring some reality into the emotional side of things here. Let me use this down button. You can see these sections up on top, the plan view that shows the relationship of the project to the property line and the yard spaces in the adjacent neighborhood. The solar ordinance is only applicable to the residential properties, not the commercial one immediately to the north. So in order to comply with that, we had to terrace the building back from those residential properties. And in every instance, we used the envelope that we couldn't exceed to comply. It was, while we could have chosen a waiver or a concession per state bonus density law, we tried to be sensitive in this arena to the degree we could, and we complied with that solar step back. So while you can see the plan view separation of buildings and yards, you can also see the literal property line right here and the yard space. It's not while the yard setback is excessive of what's required, in order to achieve the angle stipulated by the city solar ordinance, we had to step back the upper stories further. So that relationship is dictated. But I also would like to point out and I think this can help the neighbors in attendance, the solar studies show the two solstices, the summer solstice, the winter solstice, and both the spring and the fall. So you get a complete range of impact of solar. And while, of course, there are impacts in the winter solstice at 9 a.m. or 3 p.m., that's the lowest time of the year for the sun, any height, 2-story or 3-story, will project incredible shadows. So I'm confident in stating that there's a great deal of solar access. It's not like it is now. It never would be with any development. But the fact is that much of the year, sunshine will permeate to the adjacent properties. And we're happy to kind of say we achieved that with this proposal.
Okay, thank you. Any follow-up questions? All right, let's go into comments. Vice Chair Whalen?
Well, this one is difficult, and I'll reiterate my stance from the last meeting. I do think the Milpas portion is appropriate in size, bulk, scale, character. I didn't see any changes to the north elevation, although Mr. Hockhauser talked about the ability for murals to be placed upon it as not being part of what they are proposing. What I was more concerned about was breaking up the mass with perhaps framed moldings. But moving on, it does occur to me that I'm fairly convinced that the rest of the building is too large for the neighborhood in its mass, bulk, and scale, and is not compatible with the neighborhood, especially the immediate neighbors. While I appreciate the level of detail that Mr. Hockhauser has put into it and his responsiveness, it doesn't seem to address the larger issue of the mass, bulk, and scale and compatibility with the neighborhood. Thank you.
Board Member 6?
Yes, thank you, Chair Anderson. I want to clean up a few things from April 1st. First, I forgot to appreciate the fine presentation that you've done and the good work and the design of the overall building out of context. And I also want to apologize to all that it's very hard when a project like this is so problematic to the real world that it will be sat in. It's very hard to stick with our very limited directive to talk about aesthetics. And I want to correct or augment what was said, that our board is only here for aesthetics. It's here for aesthetics of the building, and it's also here in aesthetics in relationship to the neighborhood. So that's very important. And I still find what I appreciate, again, the response that the applicant has made to a lot of my detailed comments. I think it's come a long way. It's the detailing and the building itself out of context is quite nice, but I am absolutely convinced that this is not compatible with the neighborhood, and I will remain in that with my vote.
Board Member Black?
I'm going to defer comment right now.
Board Member Noon?
I don't have anything additional to add to that. I agree with the previous comments.
Board Member Sofferin?
For the record, I'd like to say that the reason why I asked how many times that this project has come before us is to show that this project is not here and getting a hall pass from the ABR, that the applicant has followed a process that's established not by the ABR. And I understand that change is impactful to the residents, and I'm sorry for that, but you know, we are dealing with something that goes beyond what we can do here. I recommend that the applicants consider taking their battle to Sacramento, because that's really what we're fighting. You know, we're not fighting here with the city, we're fighting with state mandates. And there are multiple builder remedy projects that are in the works that are absolutely maximizing their potential and opportunity. And this project is not one. And I think it's important for us to try and support applicants who are bringing change to our city, whether we like it or not, but are not maximizing those opportunities. The fact that there's parking, I think, is a godsend considering some of the other projects that are coming to this city. So I understand that this project may not be compatible, but I appreciate the fact that they are not trying to build the most amount of units that they can and ride the coattails of an oppressive law that the state has pushed down on us.
Thank you. Yes, I would like to say that I appreciate the effort from the applicant with the detailing and the update from last meeting. I do think it is an improvement from what was brought to us previously. And it feels like, even though we're not allowed to use feelings on the board, but it feels like we are basically being told we have to approve it, and if we don't approve it, it's going to happen anyways. And so it is part of our project compatibility findings is saying that it's consistent with the general plan. And because they're here for project design approval, that means to us from planning that it is consistent with the zoning code. It is consistent with the general plan. So that we would have to find compatible. For the mass bulk and scale, that in a way, is allowed in this zone, in this location. And as mentioned, it does meet the solar ordinance where it needs to. And like the applicant mentioned, they don't have to. And the solar ordinance is actually used all throughout the city on single-family homes, and it's actually not normally used on large projects, which I appreciate it being used. If the traffic study is really from 2011, that's kind of weird. I don't know if that's true. So I think my vote would actually be for project design approval because it meets the planning and zoning code as far as we know. And I think that the architectural details are going in the right direction for the style that the applicant wants to accomplish. So those are my comments. Yeah.
I'd also like to add that as a professional, I sit on the other side of the table, and I am often forced to challenge the staff who works here at the city, planning staff and building staff, and they were remarkable individuals with a great comprehension of the laws and the rules that relate to doing projects. So I just want to put on record too that the staff does a great job, and they're really working in the public's best interest.
Chair Anderson, I would echo that. But they are here for preliminary design approval. Are we, even though we have split board on compatibility, do we have a consensus that the level of detailing, the style, the ins and outs and so forth are acceptable to give it PDA?
Well, I'd welcome discussion from the board, so if anyone has an opinion on that.
Well, I don't see those items as being separate, that compatibility or project design approval would mean not only the materials and the expression, but the neighborhood compatibility.
Well, if I sense the room, I think that this will get PDA, but we still have to be cognizant of what we mean when we approve PDA. And are those that are going to support this happy with and comfortable with the PDA level of design and articulation?
Chair Anderson, if I may, if it's going that way and the board is going to grant project design approval, I would ask if there's something you want different about the project, that you make very specific conditions so that when it comes back for final, it's easy for staff to and the board to make sure that you're checking off those items.
And just to clarify again, if this gets PDA, we still have final, but we only see them twice. Correct? So, right, so we have 5 total. We're going to see them twice. So if we want to get not influence, but if we want to have our say about the design, right, now's the time. And I agree, be specific about the details. Sure. We can't touch the other parts, right? We've done the best we can. So
I think it's hard to give super specific details without designing it for them, in my opinion.
No, I'm not saying be a designer, but just take that time that we have.
Yeah.
If we only have 2 more times, let's focus on that instead of hashing out the part that we really can't control.
Well, in order to help, if this was in a different context, I would be ready with the level of design to grant this PDA. And I don't think anybody else has the specific materials or questions or problems with the detailed design to make a specific list. Am I right?
I don't.
Okay, so there's where we at.
Yeah. Can you pull up the project compatibility findings so I can just look at those? I will make a motion. Okay, I will make a motion for project design approval as presented. Number one, the project is consistent with the design guidelines that are applicable to the location of the project. Number two, it's compatible with the architectural character of the city, of the distinctive characteristics of Santa Barbara. Number three, its size, mass, bulk, height, and scale meet the zoning code. Therefore, we can find it appropriate for its location. Number four, there are no adjacent landmarks or historic resources that we know of. Number five, it does not impede the public views of the ocean or mountains. Sorry, public views. There are distinctive public views in the coastal zone. So if you want to understand public views, please talk to the planning department, not private views. The use of open space and landscaping is appropriate. We look forward to further detailing and the location of the mechanical units, the vents. We look forward to them being appropriate to the neighboring properties.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, we'll see.
I just wanted to thank you for that tough motion.
Sure. Might need protection out there.
Okay, we'll take a vote. Chair Anderson?
Yes.
Vice Chair Whalen?
No.
Board Member Anderson? Oh, excuse me, he's gone. Board Member Black?
Yes.
Board Member Noon?
Yes.
Board Member Six?
No.
Board Member Sovereign?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Would our two board members that voted no please like to?
My no vote reflects the incompatibility of number three, the size, bulk, mass, and scale.
I likewise.
Okay, there is a 10-day appeal period. Should be on the screen. The process for appealing is on the screen. Thank you. And with that, we will adjourn today's meeting.
Thank you.